is to be an accessory if it helps another medical device to achieve its intended purpose. So, for example, if, well, let's say you have an accessory that helps to refine a particular hypothesis, or helps to take data from one place to the other, as a medical data from one place to the other as a necessary step. So really think about this. And accessory, I point this out because the medical devices regulation proposes to include a definition of accessory that is much wider than the current definition, because the current definition is an accessory is anything that enables a medical device to achieve its intended purpose. The new definition is enable or assist. Well, what's assist? Well, that can be really broad. So good luck with that. But if something is a medical device, it can also be an in vitro diagnostic medical device. Now this is a flowchart that I've made. It's a bit different from the flowchart in the MedDev, but this one I find more convenient. But basically, what you need to take into account is once you are in the scope of the Medical Devices Directive, it can be that if you have software that specifically works with in vitro diagnostic data, so data that comes from an in vitro diagnostic device, like a blood glucose meter, for example, in that case you have to seriously consider that your software can be an in vitro diagnostic device and needs to be CE marked to another directive than the Medical Devices Directive. It's a directive that looks a lot like it, but still has different criteria. So be careful of that. Well, these documents I've mentioned. This is another interesting one for software, and I'll speed up now because otherwise Sophie won't have time to talk. They're proposing to change the definition of medical device as such. So they're saying medical device and the instrument blah 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 for the specific direct or indirect medical purpose of. Okay, so if you have software that's for an indirect medical purpose, well, you define me what an indirect medical purpose for prediction of a disease is. Well, that can really be something. That could, for example, be a lot of quantified self apps that say, well, if you smoke more, how many cigarettes do you smoke? I'm going to track it. And then it tracks, oh, you smoke, or let's say glasses of wine or glasses of alcohol. Okay, so you track this many, I track that you consume this much alcohol over time. So that means that I can predict that you have a high probability of contracting liver cirrhosis or other alcohol-related diseases over some time. It's really unhealthy to do that. Medical device, currently it would probably be firmly in the borderline, but then it will be a medical device. So this is something, again, this comes from the in vitro diagnostic regulation that it's also reviewing, trying to put this in. So they, just to be consistent, they also put it in the medical devices regulation now. But this is very, very important for the software industry because it expands the scope of what is a medical device enormously. Of course, we as lawyers were like, way, two hands in the air, but this is not something you hope for industry, of course. And this is.
I don't understand. Why do we as lawyers have two hands in the air against the rules and regulations?
Well,
That's what I'm saying.
That's why I say I don't wish for it for the industry, and I certainly don't wish for it for the patients, but it's complicating things to such an extent that's really unnecessary. Well, exactly, but that's not a question that you have to ask as a parliamentarian, apparently. There is the definition of accessories, and then, well, I just wanted to raise some of the new essential requirements. So you have to do a risk, you have to look at, for software, you have to look at the possible negative interaction between software and the environment. You would probably do that already, but, well, these are some others. IVDs, some more information on that. If you have a medical, if you have a notified body certified app, then you might even get unannounced inspections. And now I'm handing over to Sophie for the enforcement bit, which is, I think, more than just a little important. There you go.
Yes, thank you, Eric. So we need the correct slides. I'll stand over here. Yes, for now, in the following 4 slides, I will quickly go through some recent developments in enforcement of medical devices law. If you are already working in software, medical software, you might have become aware of the fact that the Dutch Health Inspectorate, IGZ, is now announcing to start enforcement as from 1 January next year. They announced that already on a conference on the 5th of June. Has anybody attended that conference? Yes, so yeah, some people already are aware of that. And there was another conference 2 weeks ago. Well, basically they told the same message there to the market that they will start enforcing medical devices law next year. This year, IGZ has started to collect some information from the market. I think about 20 companies have received letters from the inspectorate to hand over information which will be used to determine the new policy. We're still in the dark about this new policy. They still refer to the current policy, which is published on their website. But we don't know exactly what will happen after the 1st of January and how this enforcement strategy will look. Sorry for that. Then again, enforcement is in the center of attention of the IGZ. That's also made pretty clear because they hired 25 new inspectors, I think just for medical technology. Yes, just for medical technology. So what can you expect as from 1 January on? Well, basically there are 2 ways you can get enforcement. Enforcement might be triggered by a request for enforcement. Request for enforcement can be filed at the inspectorate by, for instance, a patient who's concerned, but also by competitors or other parties. Actually, everybody can file a request for enforcement, but not everybody is an interested party, and that is important because if your request is rejected, then only interested parties are able to challenge this rejection in court, and first through an obligation procedure at the inspectorate. Let's see, and of course, based on the policy of the IGZ, they can start enforcement themselves if they suspect a violation at your company or in a medical institution, because they will not only enforce against manufacturers but also against users. That was the announcement that was made on the 2nd of October. Well, if you receive an enforcement decision, there are a few elements that have to be in there. It's pretty clear that, of course, a decision needs to have that element. And if you have any questions about a letter you receive, you can, of course, call the inspectorate for clarification and ask them whether a certain letter is a decision or just a letter for information. I will come back to that later. And well, step 3, if there is a violation of the law, IGZ might execute a sanction. I think the fines they have defined until now, the highest fine possible is 900,000 euros. Yeah, that's very exceptional because all the sanctions that are imposed has to be proportionate. So, what if you receive a letter from the inspectorate? How should you respond to that? First of all, should you respond to that at all? Yes, you should respond to that because you have an obligation to cooperate with the inspectorate. But think about it. That is the message that we would like to give you. because all information you hand over to the inspectorate, is at the inspectorate. And although not all information can be used in enforcement procedures, if they collected the information just in the information gathering phase, still it's very hard for the inspector to unknow what they already know. So you run the risk of self-incrimination here. There's a question?
Yeah, well, I'm a former inspector. I know exactly this problem. And it's very simple how it's addressed. You switch. So unknowing, it's very simple. So you don't have to be very careful about self-incrimination.
You say it's very simple to unknow?
No, as a person, it's not. But you switch, the inspectorate switches. They have other people doing prosecution.
You mean there's a sort of Chinese wall in the inspectorate that some people...
Yes.
Okay.
And that works very well. It's up to the stage that people just say, well, sorry, I can't discuss it during lunch. I can't discuss it. Okay.
That's something we have to rely on the outside of the inspector doing it on the inside, right?
Yeah, but that's my experience. It works. So, but I don't work there anymore, so maybe.
But I think it's still very important to think about what you hand over, because there is also obligations under the Freedom of Information Act you might want to consider, because the authorities are within the scope of this model. And for the last slide, this is more how this procedure works. In case there is a violation, what happens then, and what can you do to appeal it? Well, there is a possibility to first send a letter of obligation, and this will be handled in the inspectorate in the ministry, I guess. Yes. And later on, if you still want to challenge another decision, if there's still a fine, then you can go to the administrative court and also file for an interim injunction in some cases. It just depends on your situation. And after that, there's a possibility to appeal at the district court, and even after that, you can appeal at the administrative law Supreme Court. In all of these procedures, it's very important that if you receive a decision, be aware of the fact that the terms in administrative law are fatal terms. They are non-extensible terms of mostly 6 weeks. And if you don't file an obligation or respond within that period, you have no chances of challenging it in administrative court anymore. So be aware of those terms.
But this is local, not EU right.
No, this is local, this is Dutch law.
It's different in every country.
But of course, if they said only has competence in the Netherlands.
Is this for manufacturers that Dutch manufacturers that also sell their products outside the Netherlands? Also, does the enforcement also apply on Dutch manufacturers? Don't sell in the Netherlands.
If you sell in the Netherlands, then the product is on the market in the Netherlands. So
if you don't sell it, if your market is outside the Netherlands.
If you market it outside, well, then if you market it outside, then of course there are authorities from other countries have to be.
And how is the Netherlands positioning now? I mean, are the revisions also going on in other countries?
The competence is limited to the Netherlands.
Yeah, I understand that. Is it now more important to get a product on the Dutch market than abroad? More difficult to get it on the Dutch market?
I'm not sure that enforcement strategies of different countries can differ, and I think they do differ. So you also, if you are marketing your product in more countries, you have to be aware of that. But well, I just addressed the Dutch situation here. And I would like to thank you for your attention. And we will have a coffee break now of 15 minutes. And after that we will hear Hans van Wilken talk about quality systems and technical files. And well, see you later then. Thank you.